Jasmine Crockett launched an attack to gain the upper hand, but Karoline Leavitt's razor-sharp counterstrike didn't just leave Crockett reeling, it stunned the entire audience with a powerful reversal of momentum. Under the blazing lights of the Capitol Clash studio, a live political talk show, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The audience was packed, from MAGA supporters waving bold red signs to progressive activists glaring from across the room, all ready for a no-holds-barred battle of wits. Cameras swept across the crowd, catching every flicker of emotion, every forced smile. The polished wooden floor gleamed beneath the studio lights, transforming the set into a political coliseum. Karoline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, stepped onto the stage. Her red heels struck the floor with confidence, her pastel pink blazer distinct against the dark backdrop. A cross necklace sparkled at her neck. Every detail of her appearance radiated sharp poise. She looked like a young warrior ready for battle. She smiled, unwavering there to defend Trump, her ideals, and her place at the podium. Following close behind was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Her high-tied curls didn't dare stray, her steps deliberate and proud, her eyes blazing with the fire of a challenger. She was ready for this moment, to confront, to push back, to call out what she saw as White House spin. The host, Rachel Harper, welcomed the crowd with a voice that could ignite a stadium. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Capitol Clash. Tonight, Karoline Leavitt, the young firebrand of the White House, faces off against Jasmine Crockett, the storm of Congress. The audience responded in a mix of cheers and murmurs, the buzz of anticipation thick in the air. Harper smiled coolly. This isn't just a debate. This is a clash of two world views. The studio felt like it might burst with the heat of expectation. MAGA hats bobbed beside Medicare for All T-shirts. Cameras were rolling, eyes wide and fixed. Harper lifted her note cards, ready to begin, but before she could speak, Crockett turned toward Leavitt, a polite smile playing on, her lips tinged with a sharp edge. "Miss Leavitt, hello," Crockett said, her voice sweet but slicing. "It's great to see a young face like yours here, but I wonder, how does someone just 27, a new mother, justify Trump's economic policies like tariffs when they drive up prices and hurt American workers?" The audience murmured, sensing the dig in her greeting. Leavitt didn't flinch. She smiled coolly, her tone calm, her words like steel. "Thank you for the welcome, Congresswoman, but youth or motherhood doesn't stop me from speaking for Americans. Our tariffs protect jobs from unfair foreign competition. I've met farmers in Iowa, workers in Pennsylvania. They thank Trump for putting America first. Have you met them? Or are you too busy tweeting about pain from Congress?" The room exploded. Applause thundered from the MAGA section as Leavitt's words struck their target. Harper tried to maintain control, raising her hand. "Ladies and gentlemen, things are heating up already. Miss Crockett, care to continue?" Crockett didn't miss a beat. Her eyes sparked as she responded. "Miss Leavitt, you talk about protecting jobs. Tariffs cost farmers markets, and they cost workers their livelihoods through higher production costs. Do you read the data, or just repeat what Trump tells you? Someone as young as you should know better before stepping behind that podium." Leavitt tilted her head slightly, unfazed. Her smile returned, slow and steady. "Data? I could cite it all day, Congresswoman. But workers don't live on data. They live on jobs, security, and hope. Things Trump delivered. You call me young. I'm mature enough to know the trade deals you support gutted American jobs. If you care so much, why not leave Washington and talk to real people instead of reading off cue cards?" The audience erupted again, some on their feet, shouting, clapping. Crockett, refusing to be overshadowed, pointed at Leavitt. Her voice cut through the cheers. "You're good with words, I'll give you that. But you're polishing Trump's image. A man who cut taxes for the rich and left the poor behind. I fight for workers every day. Minimum wage laws, protecting unions. You call that America first? I call it political theater." Leavitt didn't hesitate. Theater, Congresswoman. Our tax cuts helped small businesses and working families keep more of what they earn. You talk about fighting. I see steelworkers in Ohio backing Trump because he brought jobs back. If you really want to help the poor, try listening to them, instead of tweeting about them from your fancy office. The room nearly exploded again. Phones shot into the air, recording every word, every expression, every surge of energy. Harper, visibly trying to keep up with the firestorm she had unleashed, looked slightly flustered as the crowd roared and the battle blazed on. The first time the moderator interjected, she said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please settle down." Then, turning to the panel, she asked, "Miss Crockett, care to respond?" Crockett, her eyes still burning, replied with a defensive edge, "Miss Leavitt, you talk about jobs. Tariffs cost thousands of agricultural jobs. You're young, you're smart, but you don't understand the pain of those losing livelihoods because of the policies you defend." Leavitt didn't let her finish. She fired back instantly. "Pain? I understand more than you think, Congresswoman. I've met working families who lost jobs to China, not our tariffs. You want to talk about livelihoods? Let's talk about how we're rebuilding America while you're busy criticizing me to score points on X." The atmosphere in the studio trembled, as if a storm was about to break. After the fiery clash between Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett, Rachel Harper, sensing the tension, straightened up, her voice ringing with drama. "Leavitt, many have accused the White House, through your press briefings, of using media tactics to cover up President Trump's failures. How do you respond?" Leavitt, eyes locked on Harper, smiled. Not politely, but the kind of smile that made the audience hold its breath. "Rachel, I'm not surprised by that accusation. Outlets like CNN and MSNBC have spent years distorting the truth about President Trump. My role is to clarify the truth Americans deserve to hear. Just last year, we reached over 50 million people directly through the X platform, bypassing biased filters. From the White House podium to social media, I speak for those Washington forgets: farmers, factory workers, small business owners, not the media elite." The audience exploded. Cheers rang out from the MAGA corner. Crockett, not willing to let Leavitt dominate, raised her hand and jumped in, her voice sharp. "Miss Leavitt, you're spinning Trump's narrative, covering up his failures, from trade policies that cost 200,000 agricultural jobs, per the Department of Agriculture, to mounting legal battles. You stand at that podium polishing the image of a man who doesn't care about workers. That's media manipulation, not truth." The room fell silent. Some audience members gasped, feeling the weight of her words. Harper raised a hand, trying to maintain order. But Leavitt didn't flinch. She tilted her head, locked eyes with Crockett, and replied calmly, though her words cut deep. "Manipulation, Congresswoman? I don't see you at Pennsylvania steel mills where 10,000 workers got jobs back thanks to Trump, per the Labor Department. Don't talk about truth when you're just sitting in Congress tweeting about justice without acting." The crowd erupted again, applause thundering, cheers and whistles echoing. A group stood filming with their phones. Others whispered in awe. For the first time that night, Crockett went quiet, her eyes showing a flicker of shock as if Leavitt's words had struck a nerve. Harper, trying to regain control, interjected once more. "Miss Crockett, care to respond?" Crockett quickly composed herself, pointing at Leavitt, her tone sharp but more measured. "You dare say I don't act? I proposed bills to raise the minimum wage to $15, fought for unions and protected workers from Trump's failed trade policies. Meanwhile, you're busy, polishing Trump's image on TikTok like a Gen Z spokesperson who knows nothing beyond social media. Have you ever been to the slums to see how workers really live?" Leavitt, not letting her finish, cut in, her voice firm as steel. "TikTok, Congresswoman. I use every platform to tell Americans we're fighting for them, from X to the briefing room. You talk about slums. I've met workers in Detroit, where unemployment dropped from 7% to 4% under Trump, per the Bureau of Labor Statistics. You want to talk about justice? Explain why Democrats let workers lose jobs to China while Trump brought them back. The audience roared. Applause like thunder, people shouting, "Karoline, take her down." Harper, unable to hide her amazement, smiled and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we just witnessed a historic moment." Crockett, her eyes flashing, tried to push back. "Miss Leavitt, you're covering for a failed administration. Per the Economic Policy Institute, Trump's tariffs raised food prices by 10%, hurting the poorest. I represent them, the workers, the poor, the left behind. You think you understand them just because you stand behind the White House podium?" Leavitt didn't hesitate. "Understand them, Congresswoman? I'm a mother, a wife, and I know what matters to Americans. Yes, food prices rose, but median household income also rose 6% under Trump. Per the Census Bureau, you talk about the left. Behind, talk to the working families who lost jobs to old trade deals you won't dare criticize. I don't need a podium to know their stories." The congressional seat debate grew intense. "I understand their pain," said Leavitt, her voice firm. "I see it every day." The audience rose to their feet, applause echoing through the room. Some waved MAGA 2025 signs, others filmed the moment with wide-eyed amazement. Harper raised a hand, trying to steady the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen, please calm down. Miss Crockett, anything to add?" Crockett, visibly shocked, tried to respond, but her voice was weaker now. "Miss Leavitt, you're smart, but you're defending a man who hurts Americans. Tariffs cost jobs. I'll keep fighting for workers no matter what you say." Leavitt offered a confident smile. "Congresswoman, if you're truly fighting, go out there and do it. As for me, I'll keep speaking for the Americans who chose Trump, and they're listening." She turned slightly, raised a hand, and the room erupted again in cheers. Harper, flustered for the first time, cut in. "Thank you, everyone. We'll continue after the break." The studio felt like a furnace, tension crackling in the air. Karoline Leavitt's sharp remark had left Jasmine Crockett reeling. From MAGA supporters with their signs to progressive activists, everyone sat upright, still buzzing from the media showdown. Leavitt stood with calm confidence, hands lightly clasped. Crockett struggled to regain composure, but her eyes betrayed the pressure. Harper raised her hand again, voice rich with drama. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've just witnessed an unrelenting media clash. From economics to policy, our guests have shown true political fire. Now, let's raise the stakes with a topic that will shape the nation's future." She turned to Crockett with an encouraging, yet challenging gaze. "Miss Crockett, as a woman, how do you balance fighting for justice with supporting peaceful policies, especially when facing the Trump administration's hardline stance?" Crockett leaned forward, eyes fierce but voice cautious. "Rachel, as a woman, I understand resilience. I fight for justice, for workers, the poor, the marginalized. Trump's security policies, with a 7% military spending increase last year, don't bring peace. They push us closer to conflict. I call for international cooperation and protecting the vulnerable. Miss Leavitt, you're a young woman. Why support a warmongering administration that abandons the values we women represent?" Applause followed, some cheers from progressives, but the MAGA crowd's voices rang louder. Leavitt remained unfazed, smiling, eyes locked on Crockett. "Congresswoman, peace comes from strength. Trump's policies reduced terrorist threats. 90% of ISIS senior leaders were eliminated, per the Defense Department. As a woman, I'm proud to represent a president who prioritizes America's safety. You talk about justice, yet you attack me instead of offering real solutions." The audience exploded in applause, mixed with shouts. Crockett's eyes flashed, but her voice trembled. "Miss Leavitt, strength isn't spending billions on weapons while 30 million Americans lack health insurance, according to the Center for American Progress. I fight for them, women, people of color, workers. You defend a man who disrespects women, Why don't you stand up for us instead of being his tool? Leavitt didn't flinch. Tool? Congresswoman, President Trump made me press secretary at 27, a testament to his respect for women. I'm not here to prove myself to you. I speak for the Americans who chose Trump. You mention health care. Our administration cut prescription drug prices by 20%, per the Department of Health. You want justice? Explain why Democrats let the southern border spiral out of control while Trump rebuilds national strength. The room shook with thunderous applause. Some shouted her name. Harper, trying to wrest back control, raised a hand. Miss Crockett, care to respond? Crockett, clearly shaken, tried again. Miss Leavitt, Trump's policies hurt women and workers. I've proposed increasing health care and education budgets while you justify trade wars and militarization. As a woman, I wish you understood the value of peace, not conflict. Leavitt's gaze sharpened. Peace, Congresswoman? You talk peace when threats from Iran. Over the past decade, tensions with North Korea have risen by 15%, according to the International Peace Institute. Trump, however, keeps us safe through strength, not empty promises. As a woman, I understand the value of security for my child and for all Americans. If you want to protect people, go out there and meet families living near the border, people who fear smuggling and crime. Don't just sit in Congress reading speeches about justice. Crockett's eyes showed a flash of shock as she tried to respond, her voice trembling. Miss Leavitt, you're smart, but you don't see the harm of Trump's policies. I fight for women, for the poor, and I won't stop, no matter what you say. But her words lacked conviction, burdened by Leavitt's unrelenting confidence. Leavitt, calm and composed, offered a closing blow. Congresswoman, if you're truly fighting, do it out there, not on X or in Congress. I stand here for millions of Americans who believe in Trump, and they're listening to me, not you. She turned to the crowd, lifted a hand lightly, and the room erupted in cheers. People stood, chanting, "Karoline," with rising fervor. Karoline Harper, flustered for the first time, stepped in. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Leavitt, you've clearly dominated the stage. And Miss Crockett, you're still a warrior. The applause continued, but most of it was for Leavitt. Crockett tried to smile, eyes revealing vulnerability, but Leavitt's sharpness had clearly stolen the spotlight. Cameras zoomed in on Leavitt's composed expression, then shifted to Crockett, resilient but visibly shaken. Harper attempted to wrap up the event. Ladies and gentlemen, Karoline Leavitt delivered a stellar performance and Miss Crockett showed admirable fighting spirit. Thank you both for an unforgettable debate. The atmosphere felt like an arena. MAGA supporters waved signs and chanted Karoline's name, while progressives whispered, trying to process what they'd just seen. Cameras panned across the crowd, catching every excited face, every raised phone. Leavitt sat upright, her gaze steady, like a victorious gladiator. Crockett, though still dignified, couldn't mask the strain beneath her smile. She looked out at the audience, eyes flickering with disappointment, yet holding on to grace. Backstage, studio staff whispered, some checking their phones. The "Leavitt takes down Crockett" clip was already going viral on X with thousands of shares. One staffer shook their head and said, "This young woman just made history." Audience members started posting. Comments ranged from "Karoline is a star" to "Crockett tried, but Leavitt was too strong." A few progressives clapped for Crockett, recognizing her effort, but Leavitt's support clearly drowned them out. Leavitt stood, shook Harper's hand, her smile confident, her eyes gleaming with victory. She walked off the stage, red heels clicking like a drumbeat, the cheers growing louder. Crockett followed slowly, shaking Harper's hand as well, but her steps were heavier, her expression a blend of defiance and quiet defeat. Harper turned back to the crowd. "We'll be back soon," she said as cameras swept the room one last time, capturing the still-standing audience clapping and cheering. For Leavitt, within minutes of Leavitt's dominant performance, social media ignited. From MAGA supporters to stunned progressives, people pulled out their phones and posted clips on X, TikTok, and YouTube. In just 20 minutes, the hashtag #LeavittBeatsCrockett shot to the top of global trends, reaching over 2 million views. Most of the content praised Leavitt. Backstage cameras caught studio staff watching in awe. "This girl just broke the internet," someone whispered. A popular MAGA account posted, "Karoline Leavitt is the queen. Congresswoman Crockett had no chance," along with a clip of Leavitt's fierce national security response. Memes spread. Rapidly, one showed Leavitt in her pastel pink blazer with the caption, "When you're 27, but take down Congress." A TikTok video edited with dramatic music and a cut to Crockett's silence racked up 500,000 likes, comments flooding in. "Leavitt is unstoppable." E2 t-shirts with Leavitt's quote, "Peace through strength," began popping up on e-commerce sites, spreading the MAGA fervor. Her analytics on X showed over 10 million engagements within an hour, triple that of any other political event that day. Some progressives tried to counter, posting clips of Crockett's call to protect workers with messages like, "Jasmine Crockett spoke truth about peace and justice," but their posts only reached tens of thousands. Views were quickly drowned out by the wave of momentum behind Leavitt. One account summed it up bluntly. Crockett tried, but Leavitt was too sharp, echoing the broader public's tilt toward Leavitt. A YouTube video criticizing Crockett's performance, due to lack of preparation, still pulled in 100,000 views, while pro-Crockett posts mostly fizzled out with minimal engagement. Even though progressive spaces circulated Crockett's healthcare and education speeches, they were overwhelmed by what many started calling the Leavitt storm. Mega influencers on X dubbed Leavitt Trump's new star, likening her to seasoned. Politicians. One viral post declared, "Karoline Leavitt, 27, just schooled Congresswoman Crockett." Even some progressive voices admitted Crockett had grit, but conceded that Leavitt owned the stage. A Flash X poll with over 50,000 votes had 78%, saying Leavitt won, with only 15% siding with Crockett, solidifying the narrative. From backstage, Crockett posted on X, "I'll keep fighting for justice no matter who stands before me." The post got 10,000 likes but was buried under an avalanche of comments hailing Leavitt. The online storm wasn't just a quick burst of attention. It became a lasting imprint. Leavitt didn't just stun the studio audience, she dominated conversations across X, TikTok, and YouTube, casting Crockett deep in the background. What started as a digital frenzy crossed into mainstream media. Within hours, national outlets were focused squarely on Leavitt. Fox News led its evening segment with "New Megastar, Karoline Leavitt Crushes Crockett." Sean Hannity praised her as someone who just taught Congress a lesson in sharpness. Breitbart called her Trump's secret weapon, a headline that racked up over 1 million views in 24 hours. Even typically left-leaning platforms like CNN and MSNBC reluctantly acknowledged her dominance. CNN described Crockett's effort as valiant, but noted Leavitt controlled the stage. The Washington Post ran an analysis that hit 500,000 views, dubbing Leavitt Washington's shockmaker. Rasmussen Reports followed with a poll showing 65% of viewers thought Leavitt won, while only 20% backed Crockett. X forums exploded with posts declaring, "Leavitt is our future," with images of her in a sharp pink blazer exuding confidence. Invitations poured in for Leavitt, including spots on Tucker Carlson Tonight and Meet the Press, catapulting her into the national spotlight. Meanwhile, pressure mounted around Crockett. Some of her advisors suggested a full strategy, a reboot to avoid another loss. One political analyst noted, "Leavitt turned Crockett into her own shadow." Despite admiration from progressive groups, Crockett couldn't shake the weight of Leavitt's momentous performance. That night wasn't just a win. It was the making of a new political force. Leavitt's victory became more than just a televised event. It was a cultural shift. Her quote, "Peace comes only from strength," went viral across platforms and quickly appeared on T-shirts, coffee mugs, and banners at MAGA rallies. A Gallup poll conducted afterward found that 62% of Americans under 35 recognized Leavitt, with 45% seeing her as a role model for young leadership. National Review and the Wall Street Journal hailed her as a game changer, predicting she'd lead the conservative movement into the next decade. At a Florida rally, Trump himself declared, "Karoline Leavitt is the future of MAGA." Forums like Patriots. When overflowed with admiration, Leavitt crushed Crockett. Now she's our star. A YouTube breakdown of her performance hit 2 million views. Commenters summed up the sentiment. She didn't just win. She redefined Gen Z politics. Conservative women's groups began hosting Leavitt-inspired events, energizing thousands of young people to step into politics. Her legacy wasn't just a victory. It was the beginning of a new chapter for the movement, one where youth, sharpness, and boldness reigned. Crockett, still standing, returned to local events in Dallas to speak about justice and peace. But there was a shift in her tone. Her fiery eyes now held a thoughtful glint. A well-meaning ex-post calling for increased healthcare funding drew 20,000 likes but was swamped with comparisons to Leavitt. "Crockett's good, but Leavitt's in another league," read one of many replies. An Atlantic article acknowledged Crockett's spirit but conceded that Leavitt had eclipsed her in a critical moment. Progressive groups like Indivisible tried to revive Crockett's image, sharing videos of her advocating for workers' rights. But those clips only reached tens of thousands. No match for the Leavitt whirlwind. A Pew Research poll showed just 25% of viewers saw Crockett as the winner. The numbers didn't lie, and the message was clear. Karoline Leavitt had changed the game. Crockett's arguments were recalled by only a quarter of viewers compared to 70% who remembered Leavitt's quotes. Leavitt stood before a mirror in her White House office, aware she hadn't just won a debate. She had helped shape the political future. In Dallas, Crockett, wearing an emerald blazer, addressed a crowd on justice, though her eyes revealed a flicker of defeat, as if still grappling with Leavitt's sharp performance. The takeaway was unmistakable. Leavitt triumphed through preparation, calm, and connection. Crockett, though passionate and defiant, couldn't match her younger opponent's strategy and delivery. The Capitol clash was more than a debate. It was a turning point, elevating Leavitt as a symbol of a new generation. The showdown between Karoline Leavitt and Jasmine Crockett captured the essence of American political polarization and the media's powerful influence. Debates now transcend policy. They're performances that shape public opinion. Leavitt's edge came from her precise use of data, like citing the elimination of 90% of ISIS leaders and a 20% reduction in prescription drug costs, combined with an emotional appeal about forgotten Americans. Crockett, committed to ideals of justice and peace, struggled without the same level of readiness. The moment went viral across platforms like X, TikTok, and YouTube, with the hashtag #LeavittFeet, drawing 2 million views, underscoring how media can amplify single events into defining political moments. Leavitt's win, highlighted by Fox News. Coverage and supported by a Gallup poll showing 62% of young Americans know her, proved that confidence and clarity in messaging can outweigh experience. It's a lesson for modern politics. Prepare thoroughly, speak with purpose, and use both facts and story to make your point resonate. Leavitt demonstrated how to harness platforms like X for connection, while Crockett's emotional swings ultimately undercut her effectiveness. Whether in politics or professional life, success favors those who combine data with relatability and stay composed under pressure. Stand firm, use evidence, and don't back down. Leavitt's performance at the Capitol clash was a masterclass in how to thrive in today's charged, media-driven world. Subscribe for more unforgettable political moments like Leavitt's domination. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video for more epic verbal battles.